Hey everyone, it's Goon from TCD, and even though TCD doesn't play Digimon, I do, so I'm going to talk about Digimon Set 5, well, the important cards. There are 112 cards, so I can't talk about every single one. That takes too much time. So, let's just go into Set 5 and see the important stuff. At least the ones I feel. If there are stuff that you think I missed, of course, you're welcome to tell me. Starting with the new Kodemon, it's draw 1 for red, for Greymon, Omnimons, or whatever. If you're playing the deck, of course, you have to play this at 4. So that's pretty important. Same thing goes with the new Sumemon. Draw 1 for unidentified type, so if any member of the Digimon line will attack, you draw 1, which is very good. Agumon and Gabumon essentially do the same thing for either red or blue, so I'm going to include them together. You can check for one of their Digivolution lines or Omnimon added to your hand for on play, which of course combos with Nokia, which we'll talk about later. Gauss Monsiakomon and Qmon essentially do the same thing. They're anti-meta evolution picks, so your opponent can't reduce Digivolution costs, which is very prominent in green, red, blue, etc. Greymon and Garurumon both do the same thing for the Omnimon deck. They are basically 1 cost evolutions with Nokia, they're 0 cost, and give an interesting buff for DP for Omnimon or their evolution lines. The 1 cost blockers for red and blue, of course, useful to have when you want to just turbo into it. Blue Metal Garurumon has a very interesting skill. If it has a Garurumon in its Digivolution source, you can return a Digimon with on deletion to the bottom of the owner's deck. There are actually quite a new number of cards with on deletion that are very prominent in the game, especially in purple, but of course there are some cards outside of purple that have on deletion skills which are very powerful, such as the hybrid megas, Ancient Garurumon and Ancient Greymon, which is important to keep track of, and of course its ESS is very good for Omnimon, so definitely want to keep that in mind. Kodemon is a searcher for your yellow deck, for the new yellow warrior type deck, which I feel will be very interesting to see how it goes, as either a new swarm deck, which purple and green seem to be very prominent in, so I don't see why it would be wrong for yellow. With Kodemon being able to just check top 5 for a deck, that's very important. The same goes with Gladimon, which is basically TK, except for warriors and holy warriors, which of course includes Holy Knightmon. Sadly, it technically does include Omnimon, but you're not, really playing that card in yellow, not yet anyway. Yellow, of course, has Lord Knightmon, which is a new Royal Knight card. When it attacks, you can play a level 3 Digimon card, which many of them have on-play skills, or Bushi Agumon has Rush, or, you can of course play Lucemon. And you can also play a card with Warrior in this type for your hand without paying its memory cost. There aren't particularly too many in yellow with Warrior, but of course, in the future, they probably will definitely add more, and the cards that you have mostly affect DP, or will ramp up the style of this deck either by checking top 5 or going through your security stack. Definitely nice to have, and of course, it increases its own DP for having the other Digimon in play, which means you definitely want to have swarms. Green, I feel only really has cards, 2 cards I really care about. It's a Weedmon, which is just a better Vegemon for green, 1 cost, level 4, with the effect that procs off Digiburst, useful to have, and the new anti-meta pick for Agromon, it's anti-tamer, which there are lots of good tamers in the set now, so you definitely want to consider running Agromon, especially since side decks don't exist. Black is basically the Digimon line. The cards are very good. It's just that Digimon still kind of suffers from its ramping issues, but Caramon being able to search, Kurosariumon being able to play Tamer and giving all your tokens Rush makes kind of going faster even better. Infamon, of course, gives on deletion skills to your Digimon, so it doesn't really go away. And of course, the new Digimon gives you a token on Digivolution, which is much better than having to attack or having to do some other stuff to get a token, which is very great. Finally, for Black, Metal Garurumon for Black is actually a pretty interesting card, because when you Digivolve, you Digiburst 2, delete a Digimon with 6 costs or less, which is typically a blocker, or otherwise. But if you don't destroy a Digimon with that effect, you can trash top security, which is a very nice skill to have. It's like, okay, 3 costs, remove security. All the value vanillas I'm just going to include together, they're all important, either your 3 cost level 4s, your 1 cost blah blah blah, you get the point. They're all important. The Guilmon line, except for Growlmon, is pretty important to have. Guilmon has on deletion 1 memory, very useful in purple. Black War Growlmon will Digiburst 3 to revive a level 3, which of course will probably be Guilmon. And then all that just to go into Chaos Gallantmon, which will then destroy Guilmon, giving you back 1 memory, but it of course will revive Guilmon with its own skill, which is very important. Tactimon will probably be useful as like a niche like 1 or 2 of, because it has multiple skills that are pretty useful, gaining a memory, giving DP buffs to itself, or deleting 3 level 3 Digimon. It's very useful against other swarm decks like purple or green. or just Rookie Rush in general. Armageddon, you know what's important. It's anti-level 7, and for the Digimon deck, it is the true boss monster. You just destroy a token to get this monster on the field. 15k DP for 3 cost is amazing with Rush, and then also an anti-level 7 skill. It's the only level 7 you're running in Digimon, so it's perfectly fine for you. All the Omnimons are good. Let's just kind of get that out of the way. The Blitz Omnimon works with the Shoutmon deck. It also just inherently works with red or blue in general. It's very low for cost, can be made even lower with other cards. So yeah, it's pretty good. Omnimon's Wart pretty much depends on the deck you're playing, but for purple or black, just being able to revive cards from your drop for free is very good. Of course, you have Omnimon X Antibody, which is a pseudo level 8, I guess. You can go on top of another Omnimon, I guess, if you don't want to have it around. And you can, when it attacks, you delete a card with equal DP. It's 15,000, which is the highest in the game. So yeah, it'll kill everything more or less, unless you have a ton of buffs on your opponent's turn. And when your opponent's Digimon attack, you can trash Digivolution sources to end the attack. It's any Digivolution source, not just level 6s, which is very important. So if you have a huge stack of like red, just put this on top and you're going to negate like deadly attacks with multiple security. So yeah, its Wart Defeat is very interesting. It will always be useful if either in your security or in your hand. As security, you could just play for free. Or you could Digivolve it to delete Tamers, which are very problematic cards in the game for most people. Going into the Tamers, Arata Sonata is required for Digimon. If you're not playing at least 3, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Nokia is, of course, the same thing for Omnimon decks. It is super value. Like, you play it, you have an Agumon in hand, essentially pays for 2 cards, and reducing Digivolution cost of anything for the Omnimon line. Fantastic. Supreme Cannon, I feel like, is a pretty good option card. For 3 costs, you can return a bunch of cards to your opponent's hand that have low DP. Even with Garumon's 5,000 DP, it's basically any level 3, some level 4s. So that's a pretty useful card to have. I feel like it's definitely better than Transcendence Sword, which is just slightly different Gaia Force. Spiral Masquerade will be good for Yellow Swarming. For each Digimon, your opponent gets minus 3,000 DP for the turn, and of course you will proc it multiple times, so you can actually kill problematic Digimon if you have a big enough field. Whistling is for Digiburst decks, which of course do exist in green. I do like the card. Is basically just better Positron Laser. Even though it's not too important, the fact that it also does have the same effect as Raffleezemon is very nice. Catastrophe Cannon is basically you have to play this card into your Boromon decks. It's useful to Digivolve too, but also giving you a token for playing it. Demonic Disaster, Health Perp will be more aggressive. You can delete one of your lower level Digimon to spend your megas or whatnot. For only 1 cost, that's very useful, especially since purple does proc off option cards, so that's even better. And finally, Mega Digimon Fusion. Play Omnimon for free, or I guess Chaosmon if you are so inclined. Of course, you need White Tamers realistically, or already have a level 7 on field, which you're not doing in green or yellow. So basically, it's for an Omnimon deck. Being able to play it for free, which is really fantastic, since usually it's 6 costs, which will end your turn automatically. So being able to push hard for game will be interesting to see where that goes. Even though it might go back to your deck at the end of the game, at the end of turn, I mean, you're basically doing this to push for game, so that's fine too. Yeah, that's the important stuff I feel like is inside 5. With that, I have been Goon from TCG, and I'll see you later.